All right.
What's the next one?
So I'm going to group these in together.
Could be fishing.
We could be, and if we get through this, you can. All right. So what cameras do you use? Do you need an expensive one? And I'll just tie that in with the next question, which is you must have seen big changes in the fishing and filming photography equipment over the span of your career.
Bloody oath. Holy cow. Photography especially has gone through the roof from the old days. Like we're saying, in the early days, all slide film. And if there's one thing I reckon all the young photographers should try and shoot slide film and see how much harder it is than it is to film. Only because it makes you a better photographer. You understand those critical elements so much more. So I shoot Canon only because I've shot Canon since day one and I'm comfortable with it. They were really good. There was them and Nikon in the early days, but now Nikon has sort of fallen by the wayside and it's really Canon and Sony are the two big ones these days.
Yep. So
do you need to spend the bucks? I want to do that as a YouTube. So my underwater housing setup is just shy of 30 grand, but sometimes we use shots out of bloody GoPros and stuff. So
and the Axis Go.
The Axis Go's awesome. The phone, your bloody phone for God's sake shoots really good stuff. In the upcoming season 8 of Fishing with Mates, your stuff on the Axis Go is in there more than my $30,000 underwater friggin' camera outfit. So yeah, lots of change in fishing. The same thing. The gear, probably more on electronics and stuff, have come. Like in the early days, I remember when there was no GPS. People don't appreciate now that you couldn't go to, where's your marks, where were you? In the old days, you'd just be like, I don't know.
And you were lining up against markers that were actually, like a dirt track that was on the mainland.
Yeah, and a post and a tree. And so people don't realise. So that, it's also put unbelievable pressure onto fisheries because everyone now, from tuna offshore to ground fish on those heavy, structure or anything like that. So there's no hidden spots. You get them like kingfish always, everyone's fighting about kingfish in New South Wales. There's massive issues with them because we're overfishing them because there's nowhere to hide. And everyone goes, there's secret spots. My computer in that Faruna now maps out the bottom. So everywhere I go, it maps the bottom out. There you go, look at that mercury. How good is this?
Look at him go.
That's for AB. The AB, I'm looking after here, mate. Not just me old Mercia, the proper ones.
All right, so this is quite an interesting one in itself, just changing direction a little bit. So some people say fishing shows, like all industries that rely on the fishing industry, take a lot out of the limited resource of fishing. What's your feelings towards this, and how do you feel you contribute back to the fishing resource?
Holy moly, how do they come up with these questions? All right.
It's asked more than it's asked.
I reckon that's 100%. There's a lot of take out of the industry. Everyone expects everything to be given to them. So I reckon, and this gets some of the other fishing talent celebs offside a bit, they need to be putting back in. So I've done a lot over the years of, for me, fishing has given me the best life on earth. So I see it as a priority, essential expectation, like you have to put back in. So for me, I've done a lot of time in Canberra, and that's been controversial that you get.
It's seen as you're being paid.
Yeah, so people, like, you get these really weird things going, did you get paid, how much are you getting paid by the Liberal Party? So classic example, so I did one with ScoMo, so the Premier, not President, what is he? Prime Minister, that's the one, for fishing when they were going up against Labor, and all the Labor union thugs were all giving us a hard time going, you're getting paid by them.
For many Australians, all around the country, fishing has always been a part of our life. But it's always been responsible, it's been sensible, it's been very mindful of the environment, preserving fish stocks for the future. That's our way, the Australian way, common sense. But under the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd government, Labor locked out our fishers from our country's waters.
Absolutely terrified by the potential expansion. When Tony Burke threatened to lock up basically all our waterways years and years ago, and luckily the Australian people had enough about it and cracked the sads over it, to put it bluntly. For us as Aussies, fishing's a way of life. And you know what? Fishermen are true conservationists because they're the front line. They're the people on the water. Why would you alienate the people that are looking after it?
Labor will restore and save the marine parks in full.
We won't be going back to Tony Burke's and Labor's marine park lockout process. from a personal point of view, wreck fishers are worried about not having the certainty of being able to fish waters that they could fish in the past. They've invested in boats or they invest in a holiday and then they can't go fishing where they want to go fishing. That's the concern that wreck fishers have. From a commercial point of view, why would you invest in a business when you don't know what's going to happen? You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So we've got people up in the northern parts of Australia that are worried about their future business.
Where we fish, we want to fish sustainably. So for us, it's not a compromised position, and I think it's important to allow access to fishing where it's going to be fished sustainably. We're very worried about the proposal. Yeah, we've spent the last, especially the last 10, 15 years, back and forth trying to find some surety for the businesses in our industry. It's created mental health issues in the industry. The idea that we would go back and start all over again just feels unsustainable.
Authorised A. Hurst, Liberal Party, Canberra.
And it's like, what are you talking about? I've never been paid by the Liberal Party in my life. I only voted for Liberal purely because they were going to stop the marine parks. And I actually support marine parks, but I don't support the lockouts. And if they'd got in, they were going to put in, so if Labor had got in, they were going to lock up like half the country. So you couldn't go fishing. So and fishermen aren't the issue. That's what frustrates me. It's managing fish stocks. It's not lock it up and throw away the key and pretend it's going to be right.
Educate and manage.
Yeah, they were trying to suck up to the Greens, to the radical Greens that use up all the resources around us here in Sydney. All right, sorry, I won't go into it. Yeah, and for me, putting back in, so I'd go to Canberra on a regular basis. I've probably pulled back a bit now. Even things like when the super trawler went down to Canberra, got invited to go down and sat there with the guys, said, listen, and remember, you're taking a job away from a person and saying, guys, you can't do this is not going to work, you know. And we had that all sorted, and it's really fascinating to see the behaviours. So we had it sorted. The guys weren't going to fish southern New South Wales, which was where the only spot they wanted to fish, in on that 80 fathom line for the super trawler. We walked out, and this bunch of morons who didn't agree with me decided they'd have a go at me, because we found out later they couldn't go to Parliament because they'd been charged with something, so you can't go into Parliament. And because they started carrying on, we'd unified everyone in Australia, because they started carrying on like fuckheads, I'll be honest with it, because it does annoy me, they made that boat turn around and started fishing. So that the Dutch that owned it, who had never got any trouble, so the poor blokes ever running it who had the quota in Australia were getting flogged by these guys. The blokes that actually own the boat, the Dutch, who haven't really got a good track record with looking after fish stocks in other countries, so they go and flog other countries. They as soon as they saw all this rubbish on social media, and because I had to go back at them, not that I'd ever do that, they went hell for leather at us, and it ended up being, because it was in Parliament, it was a federal offence. So when they're going, we're going to kill you and we're going to find your kids and all this sort of stuff, this is from people in Australia. The federal police got involved.
Do you think that's that anonymity? There's a certain amount.
100%.
Yeah,
they all hid behind names and stuff like that. There was one, I think he was a copper or something down there, that hides behind a name.
Yeah.
And I know that people crack the sads, but yeah, this sort of stuff. And I just sit there going, and the problem was, when the Dutch saw it, they turned the boat around and started fishing. So I'd given up my days and then get accused of getting paid. God, if I got paid for all that stuff. But it goes, and I'm going off on a tangent there, is that we're putting back into it, because for me, the more I fish, the more I worry that we're not giving it a better fishery for our kids. And the ironic thing is, our kids are catching more fish than when we did as kids, but it's not because the fishery's better, it's because we're better at catching fish. So technology now, you cannot hide as fish. You simply can't hide. In the old days, oh, they're right, they swim away. If you look at like some of those, not websites, the apps, like Marine Traffic or something, just have a look in the oceans around the whole world, how much fishing there is. And the gear that they can use, like I've sat there and watched Furuno make a sonar that can pick up fish within 5 miles of your boat.
It's insane.
And estimate schools, and there's all this commercial gear, and that's not against commercial. What I'm saying is that the technology we use, we're now using it. So I've now got, in this boat, I've got Wasp from Furuno, which means all of a sudden, so it's not sonar, but I can all of a sudden, out fishing for marlin, I've got, I think it's 300 metres either side or 200 metres either side of the boat. So my zone that I'm scanning used to be below. I'm covering a lot more ground, And yeah, the fish can't hide anymore. So yeah, I do worry about it. And for me, putting back in is essential, but everyone needs to. And we need to get rid of this petty bullshit where they all carry on and fight because I didn't get enough recognition and do this and I didn't do that. And get in there and look at how do we make the fishery better. That's the key. And getting commercial rec and, heaven forbid, greens as well.
Yeah. There's got to be balance.
Did I actually answer the question or just completely miss it?
All right, so you have already sort of touched on it. What's your advice to newcomers to any of the industries you work in? Passion.
So passion's the key. So you find your niche. So in this industry, for me, it started with magazines. That's finished now.
Yeah.
TV's still massive. You've got YouTube, you've got Instagram. Unfortunately, with a lot of social, if you're not a chick in a bikini, you're not going to get big numbers.
Right.
I know that's...
It's just the nature
so
of it.
I was just going to start working on it.
Sorry.
Oh, bloke in a bikini. Sorry, did I say chick in a bikini? No.
And bikini coming up in the next one.
And I hate to say it, that's it. So some of it is just purely put a bikini on. And I know that's sexist, so that shows what content they want to a certain degree.
Yeah. Or what draws the attention to begin with, do you think?
Yeah. So, and it's an interesting scenario. I've got a good friend, Mo, over in the US, so she fishes down in Louisiana. Awesome fisho, great looking girl. Does she do it in a bikini? No.
No.
She could because she's got the bod for it, so if you someone says that. But she just loves fishing and doesn't wear a bikini. But that's not if someone likes wearing a bikini for fishing. Do you know what I mean? Like it's, if you're wearing it just to show off and be an Instagram star, and it is a hard thing. So all the blokes, but the biggest thing I can suggest is get good content.
Yes.
Yeah.
And believe in what you're doing. I think, and something you're probably playing down to a certain extent is being genuine in it as well.
It's got to be authentic.
Genuine, stay true to what it is that is driving.
And I'm sure we'll get that in sponsorship now. Now I know all these questions are coming through.
Okay, so how do you stand out from the crowd? You said about dropping the six-pack in when you first tried to get aired on TV.
So
what's
authentic.
Advice?
You must be authentic from the very start.
Especially being an Australian audience, do you think?
Oh, worldwide. No, it's worldwide. You've got to be genuine with and honestly believe in what you're doing. And if you're passionate, you'll make your work better. So if you look at it and go, close enough, good enough, it won't. You've got to make it better. So we started, and a lot of other shows you can see followed with the underwater and all these, and other shows started doing it as well. But a lot of time people just don't put enough effort in.
Yep.
And we've had it where, so we'd go on a trip, if we've done trips where, a week and the footage isn't what we want, we scrap it.
Yeah.
So, and this is where it goes back financially, that's not a good thing. But for making it TV that can be on Netflix and all these other things,
you work
no
to
problem.
Quality.
Yeah.
Instead. Yep. All right. So, as you mentioned before, social media has changed the face of your business. You are now so accessible compared to years gone by. How do you deal with the negative and positive aspects of this, especially when contentious issues like the lockouts and super trawlers and more recently sharks come up? In particular, how do you deal with the online trolls?
I love trolls. Trolls are just unhappy people in their job. That's all it is. And a lot of them whinge. Like you get some stupid stuff that you just go, what the hell are you talking about? Like
some
they're normally
irrational.
Yeah, I wouldn't say low educated because that's not the right thing, but they don't understand what they're talking about. So a classic one, we want the same rules the commercials have. So does that means if you have a bird on board or you have a bird tangled, that's an interaction that stops you fishing if you're in Commonwealth waters.
So ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. So where they feel that their opinion is so important, and I block some of it now because I'm just got a bit like, I can't deal with your crap. If it's an honest argument, because I like people that they can agree to disagree, but when they start, you get it. We saw it recently with sharks. Just pathetic behaviour where, oh, this is rah rah rah, and you wear a skirt.
I monitor our social media as well, and I wasn't prepared for the death threats and things like that.
Yeah, you get that all the time.
The threats against the kids and stuff like that. That's just, I must admit, I'm quite happy to send straight to the police.
That's the only way to do it. Well, we had probably the worst was the super trawler, where they were putting photos of my kids up.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, I don't care. They can have a go at us and do whatever they want
because
they're
were
all
quite young at the time, weren't they?
and
as
they
well?
put photos of my kids up, and it was the guys from Tasmania again, and saying these kids are on drugs and they're abused or something like that.
How old were the boys at the time? They were only little tackers.
12-year-olds and stuff. So they're underage kids, and that sort of behaviour. And others that were like fisheries managers and all that. We're going to find your daughter and rape her and stuff. These same blokes out of Tasmania, these thugs, and I just went game on. So I went to everyone and found out and put it up. And then the good thing is, you know, from the big sponsors and all that, they're all like
support.
Yeah, well, you can't do that. The good thing now is with social is that it's now getting the point. So when they make these threats, in those days they could get away with it a bit. Yeah. Now people need to understand, you say stuff like that, they're coming for you.
Yeah.
Like, I now have a zero tolerance, so if people make threats like that, like you said, straight to the police and let's have a go and see what happens, you know.
Because they are becoming accountable, as you say.
Yeah, you're accountable now. And people need to remember too, for the guys, and this is for the other side, so if you want to make a career in this business, or any career, and it doesn't matter whether you're a lawyer, whether you're going to be a gardener, whether you're going to be a shipwright, they look at your social media. So if you put stupid comments up or you go crazy on anything from Trump to anything, whatever it is that you're on, they look at it and they put it. So you got to understand that if you put stupid comments up, it's going to haunt you. Like, it's really important people understand. And I've been doing it with my kids with Coops and that, because they get angry. You see people putting these stupid comments, don't respond to it, mate. They don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, but they don't understand. And you go, yeah, they don't understand. But if you put something up and all they want is a response. Yeah. So for everyone out there, when you're dealing with these trolls, and the girls can get it, like, it is unacceptable what some of the girls get for it. Like, it's cop it. Like, it is ridiculous. Do not respond. We just block and get rid of them. And do you know what? They're not important. If they have a good argument, like we've had sometimes there with social, you've gone, oh, that's a good argument. Like, you've got a good argument. We don't agree with it.
It opens the conversation up for it to be discussed, which is always healthy. But ranting doesn't get
and you've got it worse since COVID. More people rant and rave because they're angry with each other and all that. So you've got more of that sort of stuff in recent time.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so Quilo89, with the rise of YouTube fishermen, do you think traditional fishing shows are on the way out, and how do you stay ahead? And I have to laugh at the second part to this. Tricky one is Audi the true brains behind the operation?
Did you write that?
I can dispel that outright. Right here, Audi is not the brains behind the operation. Audi is usually behind the camera because she hates being in front of the camera. But yes, it's over to you.
Quilo, I like that one. And she is in charge, so let's just have that on the record. So that's an interesting one. So TV is still a massive avenue, particularly for sponsorship. The real younger generation don't watch it as much, but it's still the biggest response that you get is from TV. This week, the call of the ocean is too strong. I've just heard the bluefin tuna have turned up 20 miles off Sydney. So I've grabbed my mate Jim.
So Jim, you excited?
Oh, fuck, mate.
And we've headed out in search of these jumbo-sized tuna.
Yeah, I'm in.
We struggle to bring up one of these barrels.
It's breaking me back already, it's been 5 minutes.
We do our bit for science by tagging a couple more tuna.
We've got the tag in, I'm just trying to unhook him so it doesn't hurt him. Look at that. Look at the size of that puppy guy. Woohoo!
And I get to swim with the fish. It's like getting lost in this alien underwater world. Woo! Fishing is my life. It's in my DNA. From above the water and below the surface. It's who I am. Oh yeah! Join me as I travel the world in search of the most insane fishing experiences on the planet.
This is not good!
Croc out of nowhere comes in, smashes my barra.
Oh yeah! You're in for it now, buddy.
size of it.
Get in the boat, Alex, and straight to the boat. I'm McGlashan, and this is Fishing with Bait.
So without fail. So has it gone? Not a chance in hell. Has it now diversified so there's two markets? So yes. So TV has still got the biggest response bar none for us.
Yep.
With YouTube, there's a lot of guys doing it there. How many are super successful? There's bugger all.
Yeah.
And it's been it's a real tough one. So yeah, young guys like Back to Basics, Stricko and Azza, really good blokes, building a genuine, and it's an authentic, goes back to what I was saying before, that authentic brand that they're pushing because they genuinely love what they do.
They're not glorifying or anything like that, they're genuinely going
It shows through when you're fake. I think TV does it as well. If you're not genuinely like passionate about what you do, it comes across and you don't last. So YouTube's a really good one, but YouTube's really hard to make money out of. Like, I'll be honest, if you're not that 0.00001%.
Yeah.
If you want sponsorship, TV is the one where you get the bigger sponsors because they get the bigger response. Because, for example, Mercury, a 12-year-old kid is not buying an engine, but the 35-year-old that watches every show is.
Yeah.
So it's to your markets as well. And remember also that we've got an ageing population, so that larger portion is watching the TV element. Yeah. So, but it's a good question.
Now,
and yes, she is still the boss.
No, not at all. So this one gets asked all the time, so it has to be asked today.
Ooh, stud muffin. Yes.
How much do you get paid?
By who?
I know. That's what I thought I'd ask. That's how it comes through every single time.
How much
do you get paid? So now's your chance to set the record straight as to whether or not you get into this business for financial gain.
Fuck, I should have just brought out my bank balance and show that. No, so I've had months where you don't get paid anything. I've never had any political stuff. So even ACORF, or I think it's the Advisory Council, that used to be the only paid job that I had in for advisory. So the rest of them I do all for free. And that one, because if you get paid, you can't say what you think. You have to agree with them. So I wouldn't take the money. They end up putting the money in my account, and I donated the money to SAT tagging to pay for all the SAT tagging. So
you it's important to you to stay as an unbiased
neutral
component. Yep.
I would be, in the future, I'd probably take on paid roles advising, but like they asked me before that they're doing the harvest strategy for New South Wales, and they said, do you want to come on it and all that? You don't get paid for anything. And the thing is too, to remember, is that you're doing all these jobs for free, so you're not actually doing your proper paid job.
You're doing it just for the betterment of the industry, the fishing industry.
Yeah, and so, if you're looking at your profit margin in your business, and this being straight out, the last couple of years have been hard because we're upgrading gear all the time, but the money hasn't actually really increased over the last few years, last 5 or 6 years.
Which brings us back to the point, you have to be passionate about what you do, otherwise you won't stay in the industry.
But it's still the best job in the world, so how much do you get paid? Well, it depends what it is, and jobs change and chop a lot, so yeah, it's very up and down.
Well, it leads us into, forgive me if I pronounce anybody's name incorrectly, but N. Wessam. The real question is, what are you actually getting paid for? So I'm not sure whether this is...
Is that meant to be political or something?
Role is
that
it,
sounds like a bit of a political one to me.
I don't know.
So never for political.
It may just be...
Yeah, so what I get paid for?
You?
So my content, I suppose. Yeah, I get paid for content. So for making TV, ambassador roles, which is back to the content, supplying content basically. So yeah, it's all about your images, I suppose. That's what it's,
So
video and stills, brand ambassadors.
Not political ambassadors.
Yeah.
All right, questions of sponsorship always feature prominently.
Yep.
As it seems to be the guiding force for a lot of anglers. How do I get
sponsored? Yep.
Which we understand because we all know angling can be an expensive sport, but it does seem to be the number one question. So it comes down to, how do I get sponsored? The most asked question.
Yeah, it is unreal. So how do I get sponsored? Okay, the biggest thing everyone sees when they want to get sponsored is what they can get out of the sponsorship. So you're completely wrong for starters. It's about what you're giving them. So if a company gives you gear, so say they give you $1,000 worth of lures, they would be expecting $10,000 worth of sales directly related back to you. So does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yep.
So everyone goes, I want this and I want that and I want all these things.
But the reality is, it's what you're giving them. So if you get $1,000, you need to be giving them $10,000 worth of value. And it's, for me, I honestly am not a big fan of sponsorships. I need it for my job, but I'm really strict on how. So a lot of people, for me, for example, I've been with Halco for 20 years now. And for Halco, it's been really, over the years, it's been, I love some of their products and there's some I don't like, but I only ever, and this is for the young guys, only use products you genuinely believe in. I've had people offering me more money. Oh, sorry.
So people are just...
It's Coops.
Coops is at school. Yeah, how good's that? He's meant to be at school. Yeah, for me, I only use products I genuinely believe in, because in my job, if the product doesn't get me what I need, I don't get the content.
Yeah. So
some others, might have other jobs, but if this is your job, you can't do others. So you have to be authentic. So if you don't genuinely believe in the product, and I've had over the years, and this sounds silly because I'm probably the only one that's ever done it, where other brands have offered me more money, because some don't pay, than ever I'm sponsored by.
Yep.
And I've said no because I prefer the product I've got.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Is that sort of
authenticity back
Yep.
to the
So you got to be
authenticity.
authentic, and you have to give them bucket loads for nothing before you even count.
Yep.
So don't think about you, it's about what you give them. And when you do, we always contract it so they know exactly what they're getting, and then we over deliver by 100%.
Yeah.
Because when you go into a contract with a business and they go, they want this, this and this, and you go, oh cool, then you think that you can be miles apart. So when it's in, this is what you're getting every time, and then it's really important that you look at it that way. Yep.